Kyagulanyi Sentamu Robert Bobi Wine Mama Alina Zedriga Walu General Kaguta Museveni Icc Ebigambo binenemu byasobyaganye katusoke tulabe Mama Alina Zedriga Walu olyokotegeere nti nno okutyoboola eddembe ly'obuntu General Kaguta Museveni eyamwalula yandibanga esiridde.
The global citizens, my dear fellow Ugandans, the women and men, the people and citizens, especially of Africa. Today, we are going to hold conversations around the issue of keeping our commitments to defend human rights. Not only to keep these commitments, but inclusively that we leave no one behind, that we do not give up even when the situations are just that dirty and muddy. And we are also reminded it starts with me, it starts with Dorcas, it starts with each one of you. I am with you, Tuambe, and thank you very much. It starts with you, rise up, and please take some action. And I started by reflecting on human rights, but also we the human rights defenders. This is a term sometimes we use very loosely, but it describes us, the people, individually or with others, that act to protect, to promote, to respect, to prevent human rights violations in a peaceful manner. So I also reflected on other human rights defenders like Wangari Maathai, who said, and I quote her, that in the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fears. We shed it like the snake sheds its skin. We shed our fears and we give hope to each other. And that time is now. This was Wangari Maathai who died. She said, and rightfully so, that in the course of history, there comes a time when humanity is called to shift to a new level of consciousness, to reach a higher moral ground, a time when we have to shed our fears and give hope to each other. And that time is now. So it's very, very pregnant with interpretation and relating to me in person. Am I giving hope to you? Am I really on this journey to go to the higher ground? Or I am doing a PhD, that is pull her down, pull him down. Give him or her the discouragement, you know? So Wangari Maathai's quote is very, very, very critical for us to reflect on. And we all know that she founded the Green Belt movement in 1977. And for her, it was to plant trees across Kenya to alleviate poverty and end conflict. That was her vision. She was driven by a perceived connection between environmental degradation and poverty and conflict. I believe that is also true for us. So, what are the key reflections today in this short time that we are going to be holding? One, defending human rights and understanding what role we can play and what is happening elsewhere. And then the key reflection is leaving no one behind and not giving up. And then reflecting on the key framework that is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights document 1948. Why are we doing it? We will, in our conversation, refer to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights document at being celebrated at 75 years by the UN family. And they have key activities that are very related to what we are endeavoring to do, defending human rights, rising up, not keeping silent. We will look at some of the case studies and references And then we also reflect on what form does human rights defense really take, if any? Is it like water? We will also reflect on who we are. And then we will look at our different calls for action. I reflected on the UN State Department's report about Uganda, which they wrote in 2022. Among other cases, they stated that in Uganda, there's arbitrary deprivation of life and other unlawful or politically motivated killings. The US State Department has that report, which reflects that you and I also know that there were also very many other reports that government and its agents committed, and they still continue to commit arbitrary and unlawful killings. Yet the law provides for these agencies to investigate, inquire into, and prosecute unlawful killings. But what do we see? We see the government rewarding violence. Those ones that really have exceeded whoever they are, the Omaras and so on, others are shifted and promoted. In our country, instead it is rewarding violence. And then we also are aware of the Human Rights Commission, which is a quasi-judicial body. I do not know, to the best of my knowledge, it has for a very long time not been fully constituted. Was this deliberate? It's for you and me to reflect on. The US State Department report rightfully also stated that significant human rights issues that included credible reports of unlawful arrest, killing, extrajudicial killings, forced disappearances, torture, and cases of cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment or punishment by government agencies. Harsh and life-threatening prison conditions. You should read Kakwenza's book, The Savage Avenger. And many of you also know, at a personal story, we must not keep silent. We must continue to rise and report these cases, which the government is reluctant to investigate or to prosecute or even punish the officials. Instead, I repeat, these officials are rewarded. Violence continues to be rewarded by promotions and other rewards. So let us frame this human rights defense practice in framing this practice in context. From December 2022 to December 2023, the United Nations Fraternity is celebrating the declaration at 75 under the theme, Stand Up for Dignity, Freedom, and Justice for All. Stand up. They are not telling us to sit down. They are saying stand up for dignity, freedom, and justice for all. It has further committed that there is a rebirth that often follows decimation. And so in the aftermath of the World War II, on December 10th, 1948, the General Assembly of the UN adopted this declaration. 1995 Constitution, mutilated as it is, the whole of Chapter 4 is called the Bill of Rights. So I quote the UN high-level persons where they said, if there was ever a moment to rekindle the hope of human rights for every person, it is now. They did that in June in Vienna. At this moment, I further quote, will last throughout 2023 and beyond, a year of commemoration of one of the world's most groundbreaking international commitments. In 2023, we reinvigorate the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, showing the ways it meets the needs of our times and advancing its promises of freedom, equality, and justice for all. We reflect on it. So what are some of the overarching human rights principles they are talking about, that we are the defenders, we are the victims, we are the survivors, that we want to really promote and protect. Fairness, respect, autonomy, equality, and dignity. We are all equally entitled to our human rights without any form of discrimination. These rights are relatives, interrelated, interdependent, intertwined, and they are indivisible. They cannot be divided. They can't. So the principles are the universal and inalienable interdependence and indivisibility. They are related. They are like Siamese twins. You cut one, they are all dead, both of them. They are equal and non-discriminatory. And they are also rights and obligations. It's not a favor. It's not. It's a duty, it's an obligation. So the principles I had already stated earlier, and I want to repeat: fairness, respect, equality, dignity, and autonomy. Autonomy is about choice and control. These principles are considered to underpin all international human rights treaties. And it is therefore at this time that I want to reflect on what Wangari Maathai said again, that it is important to nurture any new ideas and initiatives which can make a difference in Uganda, in Africa. It is important to nurture any new ideas. What we're doing right now are new ideas. She also further says that should encourage us that the little grassroots people can change this world. And she did. The little grassroots people can change this world. You and I, even through these conversations, we can change the world. So what are the things we need to learn as human rights defenders, as we rise up, as we see that we must take action? That everything we do, everything around us is connected. What we're doing is actually even peace work, preventing human rights abuse, preventing arbitrary arrests, talking about allowing us ourselves to grieve, to craft ways is peace work. We're crafting, we're doing what the Holy Father said, good politics is at the service of peace. That it starts where people are. It starts where you, Dorcas, and all of us are. Trees, this conversation, whatever it is, she actually stated that trees are political. When people say, I don't want politics here, you know, don't come and talk politics. Even the conversations we're holding is political. Trees, according to Wangari Maathai, and rightfully so, are political. Environmentalism is not a luxury. That's what she said. What we're doing is not a luxury. It's not a favor, because history judges differently. I want us also further to reflect deeper. Human rights belong to everyone, every human being. They include the right to recognition and equality everywhere, especially before the law. I actually have a t-shirt that my dignity, my honor, my dignity is not on sale. You know, that's a voice. You know, your identity. Why should I be forced to be somebody else? You know, you should not, you know, you must be on my side, or there's no other side. You die for it. You must not speak your mind. Even within homes, even within organizations, this vice has crept everywhere, even on the social medias. So to be protected from torture and cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment, the right to the protection of families and children, and to have our privacy respected. Our children are bearing the brunt of our loud voice as a voice of dissent, as a voice of freedom. Long-time activist Rosa Loca, who participated in Vienna recently in the World Conference on Human Rights, 30 years ago, and then in June, she also participated. She calls, and I also join her, for renewed energy to respond to the pushbacks on human rights. Renewed energy. And that's what we're doing today. 30 years after the Vienna Declaration and Program of Action that paved the way for human rights breakthroughs, a worldwide consensus on human rights is essential to confront today's challenges. So what we're doing is making our mark in that, also holding these people accountable. So human rights at 75, Uganda, the United Nations Declaration at 75 is an initiative with the three main goals: universality, progress, and engagement. It is being coordinated by the UN. But of course, we are stakeholders in these things, and we must also hold them accountable, because they even have calls for us to participate. And that is a platform where some of our actions should be taking place. I was some time back in New York, and we were planning something at a global level. So we talked about Ethiopia. I'm giving it as an example of their organizing. They said, no, they will come in numbers. So that's how much people fear numbers, how much people fear and entities fear organizing. So we must continue to organize by right, because we are equal by right. Then we need to look at December 11th to 13th this year. This United Nations is going to have a high-level meeting, a high-level organizing. There are those of you who will have the opportunity. We need to be organizing, to write petitions, to write protest letters, to demonstrate, to even hold exhibitions around the status of human rights and why the world is continuing to keep silent about these very gruesome abuses. Why is it continuing to do that? Because they are going to have global pledges and ideas for a vision of the future of human rights. There has been the preparation phase. Then there is also the high-level event, 11th December to 12th. It's very important, because they are saying they are promoting universality, forging the future, supporting engagements, where they will work with member states and other actors to build a positive force for change with the trust in the human rights architecture. Now we need people to be focusing on that, such that how do we tag along and make an impact? Faith in its promise and the resources to apply the tools that are necessary to ensure that human rights are applied. So our own call to action. Me, I say, information is power, and sharing information is empowerment, and it starts with me and you. We are sharing this information, what is happening where, and it's very critical. Then two, the critical rights that are being violated, let us do an audit from the grassroots and communities. It starts with me and you. Let's document this. I was in Atiak. I went to a school, a primary school. This was 2 weeks ago. Children, young children, 5 years, 6, have to carry very big stones of about 7, 8, 10 kilos. You wonder what they're doing this for. That is their desk. I have pictures of it. I will share with you. Horrific. In this world, children are carrying stones for desks. Where are our other children studying? That level of violation of commitments and human rights abuses, leave alone the very obvious human trafficking, then the draconian laws of organ harvest. How can human beings be reduced into items, into paper? This is terrible. Into materials. Let's research human rights issues that are happening everywhere. To promote human rights, we must first need to understand the issues. Many people have good intentions. All of you here have very good intentions. But if we lack the accurate information, if we lack to coordinate with the right resources, then our efforts are futile, we get burnout. So we need to coordinate, we need to connect, we need to research. Then commit to thorough research from credible sources. You know them. We are all researchers. We give these people to do we compile our own. In fact, the title of our documentary should be In Our Own Voices and Experiences. Then you can also do your time, donate your time. It's one of the best things. Donate whatever, there's nothing too little. I thought at one time the donation meant, you have to give big thing. No, sometimes even the dress that you have not put on for a week is a big thing somewhere. It's a human rights issue somewhere. The food, the $1, the $2, the 10,000. People send me 5,000 airtime. That support is very critical. Sometimes it even saves lives. So it's very important that we need to do a lot of sharing and caring. And Wangari Maathai father also said that no matter who or where we are, or what our capacities are, we are called to do the best we can. We are called to rise up. We are called not to wait, no matter who or where we are. Whether you are in Atiak, whether you are in UK, whether you are online, whether you are offline, whether you are where, or what you and my capacities are, each one of us is called to do our best. And Mother Teresa, Father says, do the everyday something little, but with great love. Change your shopping habits. You can promote human rights by considering the human rights impact of your shopping habits. For example, do the stores and corporations you buy from exploit their workers? Are they abusing human rights? Many people, by the way, as a human rights action, no longer shop in the supermarkets and so on. They consciously give that money to the women sitting by the roadside. Let's change our habits. It does matter. Let's also see who is sustaining. Do a research on who is sustaining and funding this junta. Is it the dairy corporation? Is it whatever it is? Let's change it such that we're able to cripple them, such that we're able to even put a dent on that resource that goes to their accounts to exacerbate our violations. You most likely won't be able to shop from exclusively ethical and sustainable businesses because of the financial costs. However, you can choose to eliminate the worst offenders and commit to only buy gifts from ethical spaces. It's very important. So another action we can do is connect to human rights movements, like now we're doing. It's much easier to promote and protect human rights within a group. Look for groups doing human rights work in where you are. Create one. If they are pseudo, because there are now very many pseudo, to lure us. So be very, very, very cautious. Put pressure on those responsible for upholding human rights. The Human Rights Commission, the duty bearers. Put pressure on them. That's what we are doing. And you have seen the World Bank, because of the pressure, many of you in the diaspora, what you have done. It takes time, but the results will eventually come one day. Protest inequalities. Peaceful protest is one of the most powerful ways to support human rights. Online, that's what we're doing. Thank you so much for sustaining this every day. You are delivering on your call to duty. Throughout history, protests have sparked major changes surrounding laws, regime changes, and even more. The clip that Dorcas you shared just before we started this conversation is a testimony, is evidence, is very powerful. In fact, the more I watch it, the more I want to take up action and the more I'm inspired that it can actually be done. The bigger the protest, the more attention an issue gets. Protest can be dangerous and involve the police. We have seen it. Many of us have been victims. So we as the organizers have to stay in communication with everyone and also see how it can be done safely. And we need to trust one another. Another call we can do is take action when you see discrimination, whether it is in a taxi, whether it is in the office, whether there's so much happening in terms of discrimination. Sometimes even silence is an action, okay? A person's rights are disrespected every time they face discrimination. You can promote human rights in your daily life by doing something when you witness things like exclusion, discrimination, sexism. Taking action can mean different things depending on the situation. Commit to find out what best serves the people you want to help, as opposed to trying to play the hero. No, it is about us using the power with, not power over. It's very critical. As an example, if you see discrimination in a workplace, in a taxi, by the borders, or by even our own colleagues in these offices and spaces, you challenge it. You don't keep quiet. Of course, it comes at a price. Support economic rights. Economic rights are the root of every other human rights. If someone lives in poverty, they are vulnerable to a host of other inequalities. The iconic statesman, the late Mwalimu Nyerere, said at the face when they were looking, during the time of the independence struggles, he said, you cannot tell a hungry man or woman God loves him. He will only see God in the form of cassava. So as we are planning to defend these rights, we have to go. In fact, it reminds me when we were celebrating the week for the elderly and the grandparents not so long ago, about 3 weeks ago, and the young people from my parish were going out. The parish priest told us, you cannot go to this elderly, the judges, the days with an empty hand. They will only see your love if you go with a piece of soap, sugar, and something to eat. And then you start talking that I'm from Our Lady of Good Counsel, Gayaza Parish. I am from, So even us, we need to learn. We need to learn, because they will only, that is a lie. A lack of economic rights also fuels violence and human trafficking. We all know that. If you want to promote human rights, that which we do, we cannot forget about poverty. We cannot shelve it and come speaking our very complicated English. No, nobody will listen to us. Let's advocate for things like equal pay, equal work, education, and we continue also to prevent this whole thing of human modern day slavery. We continue to challenge it. Free child care, clean water, sanitation. Like now in Atiak, the teachers, the women, the female teachers, mothers go with their babies on their back, and they're even when the baby is crying, and then they are so we are setting up with them together under a tree, some very humble nursery, something, and buying some mats, so that we can have somebody who will come and keep their own babies, and they're able to, something very simple and practical. Support across generation. Support with the 3 Gs. Generationally, that is parents, grandparents, the young people, the children, because you are creating a legacy. You are building the bridge we have always been talking about. We have been put in walls and boxes. Let's break these walls with the first G. The second G is the geography. Whether from the northeast, south, all those are, the northern, all those are, we must break this second G. That is geography. And the third G is the gender. we must also break that barrier, because we have been boxed, we are weakened when we are individualized, we are weakened and identified. So we must, the power of mass and strength using the 3 Gs is very, very critical. And I want us to reflect on some of the earlier human rights defenders that reignited their energies amidst moments when they would even give up, to inspire us. The first is a quote from the iconic Nelson Mandela. May his soul rest in peace. He said, and I quote, "To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity." He lived for, especially we reflect around him from 1948 to the early 90s. He led, you know what happened. To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. You cannot be a human being anymore. You become something else. The second reflection is on the great Martin Luther King Jr. He said, "A right delayed is a right denied." A right delayed is a right denied. Of course, you and I know he was an American Baptist minister and social justice activist who, as one of the leading figures of the American civil rights movement, campaigned for the equal rights of African Americans and the success. The third is Elie Wiesel, who was a Holocaust survivor, who spent all his life advocating for human rights. By the time of his death in 2016, he had written 57 books. 57, how many have you written? Some of which drew directly from his experience as a Jewish prisoner in concentration camps. And this is what Elie Wiesel said: "We must take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. Sometimes we must interfere when human lives are endangered, when human dignity is in jeopardy. National borders, houses, and sensitivities become irrelevant." We were in DRC, the time at the peak of the rape, by including, among others, the peacekeepers, UN peacekeepers. We were in Goma, and one person dared to ask me, "Who invited you? Who invited you to DRC?" We said, "When your neighbor's house is on fire, in Africa, we don't need an invitation." So I had to invite myself because I do not want this fire to end up in my place. You don't have to be invited. You invite yourself. It is by right. It's a human right defender duty. 4 is Greta Thunberg. She says that activism works. Activism, what you are doing works. So what I'm telling you to do now is to act, because no one is too small to make a difference. At 20, she became the face of young climate activists worldwide after staging weekly protests in front of the Swedish parliament. Admitted during, she was charged, by the way, arrested and charged. She admitted during the court proceedings that she had disobeyed the police order, but pleaded not guilty. Very smart. And said she was acting out of necessity. This was 24th of July, 2023. This year, she's one of the youngest and most famous activists in the world today. Courage. Number 5, Bishop Desmond Tutu, as a human rights defender. What do we learn from him? This is his quote: "It means a great deal to those who are oppressed to know that they are not alone. Never let anyone tell you that what you are doing is insignificant. Let no one tell you, and do not even listen." Okay? We all know that the bishop, may his soul rest in peace, a South African theologian, famous for his work as a human rights activist and fighting apartheid in his home country. He worked alongside Nelson Mandela in the 1990s to negotiate to end the racial segregation, has since been an outspoken campaigner against other such human rights violations, including the LGBTQ rights. While serving as the Archbishop of Cape Town, the most senior position in the Anglican Church in Southern Africa, he oversaw the introduction of female priests into the church. We are talking about human rights being indivisible. You cannot say, oh, these are the other rights. No, they are interdependent. Number 6, we learn from Audre Lorde. He was an American writer and social justice activist describing herself as Black, lesbian, mother, warrior, poet. This is what she said. My silence has not protected me. Your silence will not protect you. So those who say, oh, I cannot speak, leader, hey, Dorcas, you people, be careful, don't speak. They think they're silent. Let them get a reference from Audre. Number 7, let us remember, one book, one pen, one child, and one teacher can change the world. Malala Yousafzai, she was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize at 17. She is a Pakistani human rights activist and advocate for female education. She was to be assassinated. She had to undergo many surgeries. She won the Nobel Peace Prize at 17 years old. Number 8, Eleanor Roosevelt. What do we learn from her? That we don't keep quiet, that we inspire one another. We get the energy, we pick up our crosses and continue the walk. That's what she said. Where, after all, do universal human rights begin? In small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any map of the world. Right now, we cannot be seen yet. Such are the places where every man, woman, and child seeks equal justice. Small places, equal opportunity, equal dignity, without discrimination. Unless these rights have meaning there, they have little meaning anywhere. I salute her. She was the first lady of the United States from 1933 to 1945. During this time, she was a keen activist and a campaigner for social justice. Even after her husband, US President Franklin D. Roosevelt, passed away, she continued her tireless work for the rights of people everywhere and was made the US delegate to the United Nations, where she played a pivotal role in the drafting of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which we earlier on reflected on. The landmark document that defines our human rights to this day, and the adoption of which commemorated by Human Rights Day, December 10th. We must also be planning something around those critical days. Number 9, Arundhati Roy is the best-selling author of The God of Small Things, 1997. An eloquent and passionate advocate for the protection of human rights. She has written countless essays on politics and culture and is an outspoken opponent of war and imperialism. And in 2003, this quote is from the 2003 collection of essays, War Talk, an inspiring reminder to have people in the face of adversity. And this is what she said: another world is not only possible, she's on her way. On a quiet day, I can hear her breathing. That new world, I can hear him, I can hear them breathing this new world. Number 10, Hannah Arendt. The sad truth is that most evil is done by people who never make up their minds to be either good or evil. The sad truth. Hannah was a German philosopher. He wrote very extensively on the subject of totalitarianism, power, and the nature of evil. We must be reading these books. Being a Jewish woman living in Germany during Hitler rises to power, she was forced to flee her home, eventually settling in New York. Number 11, James Baldwin, the American writer and activist. He says, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced. Number 12, Angelina Grimm. What does she have to tell us to inspire us to rise up, to wake up, to be re-energized, to remind ourselves of the commitments to keep? She says, I recognize no rights, but human rights. I know nothing of men's rights and women's rights. Then the iconic Wangari Maathai says, especially speaking to women, African women in general need to know that it is okay for them to be the way they are as a strength and to be liberated from fear and from silence. I want to thank each one of you that the call is for all of us, for each one of us. There's nothing too small. There's nobody insignificant. It is our right. We are equal by right, and we are more powerful when we are together. Asante sana. Webale munonga. Webale ino. Wanyala. Shukran.
Shukra. Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that wonderful presentation. Wow. Wow. My brothers and sisters in the diaspora on ground and friends of Uganda, I hope you've been informed and indeed educated and empowered as well by our Dr. Lina Zedriga. Thank you so much. Yes, we are going to
have 1 minute. In a special way, this is a tribute to those who have just passed on, the iconic human rights defenders, Alex, who was buried yesterday, Jaja, and many unsung heroes and human rights defenders. May their souls rest in peace and in power. Thank you.
Amen. Thank you so much, Doctor, for that. And just as well, we are having a moment of silence. In a few seconds, we are going to have a tribute to our brother Alex, and then we carry on. We will have questions. Doctor, I hope you still have some time with us.
I'm staying full time, but I will switch off I will stop my video, but I'm on. Okay, if that is fine.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doctor. Yes, comrades, let's have a tribute. This is a 1 minute, and then we'll have a moment of silence. Then we carry on with the message and questions. Thank you so much, Doctor. Comrades, please, if you could mute, let's have a tribute. I hope my screen is clear. This is our tribute to Comrade Alex, who is at home now. He's been repatriated to Uganda, and we stand with the family. May God comfort us. May God comfort the Noop family, the entire family, and all the friends. sisters, we will. You're really following. I think some people, apologies, comrades, I will double check the rest. During the moment of silence, I lost my screen. Bear with me, please. I need to check a few things. Sorry for that, comrades. Yeah.
And should be deleted if that is okay.
Yeah, I stopped their video and I should
you remove him basically, that's it.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I did. Yeah, so I was wondering, yeah, so that's settled.
Ensonga wekyo weeri maama Lina Zedriga Walu mumuwulidde bulungi. Tulina okulwanirira eddembe ly'abantu, eddembe ly'obuntu, eddembe lyaffe. Oyo yenna alemesa eddembe ly'obuntu aba asaana kulwanyisibwa ddala era aba asaana kukolebwako ng'amateeka bwe galagirwa. Nolwekyo eddembe ly'obuntu eririnyirirwa mu ggwanga Uganda tulina okulirwanirira ffe ffennyini. Naye tunaalirwanirira tutya, tunaabikola tutya? Tulina okulwana olutalo okulaba nga tujjamu abo abatawa kitiibwa ddembe ly'abuntu, tusobole okukola ebyo ebinaajuna abantu baffe, erinaawa obuntu bwaffe ekitiibwa, nga tuteekawo abakulembeze abawa bannaabwe ekitiibwa, abakulembeze abaagala bannaabwe, abakulembeze abaakuzibwa so si abo abataakuzibwa era bakola ebintu ebitagwanidde. Kale obubaka maama Lina Zedriga Walu bwatuwadde tubutegedde bulungi era bubadde bwa muwendo ate nga bulimu ekyokuyiga bingi era bye tulina okwebulirirako. Tuwe tuli tukyaleeta ebirala bingi. Mbaagala nnyo, Omukama Katonda gwe nsaba bankuumire. Mweraba.